When Midnight launches, we're going to get Blizzard's in-game nameplates. And I'm really excited about this feature because I feel like it's 90% of the way there. And it's a very real possibility that I won't be using a nameplate add-on as we head into the new expansion. Let's take a look at some of the options that they have available. So you open up your options with Escape, go to Options. On the left-hand side under Gameplay, you can see nameplates. We have some basic options here that you're probably familiar with, but the NPC names one I like. When you hover over this, and this is true for any of the upcoming items we're going to look at in this menu, you can hover over it to get a tooltip that explains what it does for you. So here we choose what types of NPCs we want to see nameplates for. I have chosen hostile, quest, and interactive NPCs, which means I won't get it for the ones that are just regular NPCs. I leave critters, companions turned off, friendly players turned off, enemy player minions turned off, because I don't think those are important. Next, we're going to scroll down to nameplates themselves. And again, these are options you're already probably familiar with, but we'll just go through them quickly. So we have always show nameplates, which I have turned on. This leaves them on all the time. You can turn it off to only show them in combat. Enemy unit nameplates I want to see their minions. So if there is a warlock or somebody with pets, you can turn that on for pets. Miner as well, you can turn on or off. And then friendly player nameplates, I normally play with this turned off. And as you can see here, when I turn it off, my nameplates above my party go away. So I am going to turn those off for now because I don't typically play with them on, so I'm going to leave them off. Friendly NPC nameplates, same situation, I usually leave those off. Show off-screen nameplates, this is whether or not I'll see them off-screen, I don't want to. And then stack nameplates, this option is very important to look at. So with stack nameplates turned off, you can see here that the enemy names in front of us are all on top of each other. So they're all overlapping on each other, and it makes it really hard to target specific enemies in that pack. But with stacked nameplates turned on, back to nameplates, stacked nameplates, enemy units, we hit that on, and you can see here it actually stacks the nameplates and spreads them out. So these 4 nameplates are all of this pack here. It's this mage, and then these fell worms that are standing beside him, and then the other mage behind him. But it spreads them out, so it's easier to see them and easier to click them. So I definitely recommend using that ability, the stacked option for nameplates. And then we're going to get into the actual nameplate preview. Now, this is not working as intended. It's supposed to show what the nameplates will look like with all of these things turned on. It will as I change them, but I think by default, it's supposed to show and be a static thing. But we're going to look at it here. So size is the first one. We can make the nameplates really small, or we can make the nameplates really big, and you can see them changing. Let me just angle my camera so you can see that a little bit better. You can see them changing size here behind me as we make that change. 5, I think, is crazy, so I'm going to drop it down to 2. I think 2 is a good size for nameplates, but that's what you can change there. Buff and debuff scale. So this controls the size. The nameplate buffs and debuffs are displayed on the screen. So you can't see the buffs or debuffs right now, but we can, you can see the one on the left, which will indicate buffs on the enemy. So we can change that so it's bigger or smaller. I like to try and match it up to the size of the plate. So 100% is about where it is for 2. Maybe drop it down a little bit to 90%. So that puts that buff there beside the nameplate. Style. This is great here. We have different styles for them. So we have the default style, which is what we have now, which is this here, target name. Then we have legacy. Let's go back to default so it shows this default style. We get cast bar, spell name, spell icon, target name, and then the cast bar. Legacy makes it look the way that the nameplates sort of look now, with the name above, then the spell name below, target name below, and this here. And then thin. I don't know what the difference is between thin and legacy, if I'm being entirely honest, other than the name turns white. I don't see a difference otherwise, but I'm certain that there is meant to be one. Block looks very similar to default, except that with default, the spell name and cast name is below the cast bar, and with block, it is inside the cast bar. I actually kind of like it outside myself. And then cast focus, which puts the name above and then the spell name inside. Oh, is that the difference? No, that's not the difference. So we're going to go with default because that's what I like. And then we have the nameplate information. So what does it show in the bar? So we get the target's name, and then we have the option for health percentage, which will tell us our health percent. You can get health value, which tells you the actual physical number of their health. If you put both on, it shortens the name, and I think that looks cluttered. So I'm going to leave it at health %. And then the rarity icon puts the marker on the left to tell you whether or not a mob is elite or rare or what have you. I don't personally love these dragon icons, so I will be leaving that off so that the nameplates are just a clean box. That's health percentage in there. Next, we have the cast bar information, and this tells you what information is given to you on the cast bar. So we have lots of selection options. You can have none, which so this is similar to the way cast bars now are. Now you'll just see the bar go up. I like the spell name because I want to know what spell is being cast, and I think spell target is a must. This single feature, spell target, is the #1 reason that makes Blizzard in-game nameplates have the ability to potentially replace PLATER or Kui nameplates or any other nameplate add-on because it tells you who is being targeted by the spell. So this one checkbox gives us that feature. Next, we have spell icon, which puts the icon of the spell next to it. Because I'm playing with my bar, with my target frame, because I'm playing with my nameplates on the smaller side, I think the spell icon is sort of tiny and cluttered, so I'll be leaving it off. Highlight important casts. If you're going to switch off of PLATER, so right now if you're using PLATER, you've probably got a profile that color codes or indicates in some manner what casts are the priority kicks. We want to make sure we still have that if we're not going to be using PLATER. Highlight important casts does that by putting these sunbursts on the edges of the cast bar. And then the last option is highlight when targeted by the enemy. This puts a red outline around the cast bar to say, hey, you're being targeted. Because I'm playing with the target name, I don't need the red bar. So for me, this is the setup I like: spell name, spell target, highlight important casts. Next is the aggro display. This is the only one that I wish could be changed a little bit. It's one of 2 items that I think are it's not my perfect solution. So right now, aggro display, what this does, it controls how your level of threat with an enemy is displayed. So progressive, the way progressive works is the nameplate will look different if you're close to losing threat on the unit as a tank or close to gaining threat on a unit as a DPS. And it's this red bar at the top, this fire bar at the top. And then flash, the nameplate will flash if you lose threat on the unit as a tank or you gain threat as a unit on DPS. And then it flashes. I'm going to leave them both on because as a tank, I definitely want to know when I've lost threat. What I would like to be able to change to make this 100% is the nameplate itself change color when I lose threat. So they're all red right now as a tank because I have, they're all red right now as a tank. I would like for it to turn green when I have threat to say, hey, you're okay, and turn red when I don't have threat to say, hey, this is bad. You want to get that. So if we could get, that's one minor change there. Feedback I'll be delivering. Then we have enemy NPC buffs and debuffs. So this is the bars. You're going to see these icons around the frames. We can see them here on the left, what this means. So this will control how the buffs, debuffs, and forms of crowd control are displayed on the nameplates of enemy NPCs. Mob buffs show the temporary beneficial effects applied to the unit. These are the items on the left. So you can see, I'm pointing at my screen like you can see it. You can see on the left here, these would be buffs on the unit. You can see it on these mages. They have this buff here. Personal debuffs. This is along the top. This is my debuffs on the enemy. And then shared CC on the right. This is any CC applied by my party. So this is great to have. I love this. This is fantastic. The only change here, the only minor change, is I would like to be able to control what of my own personal debuffs are tracked. Because as a warrior, I don't need it to tell me that this mob has Thunderclap on it. I'm Thunderclapping every 2 seconds. So I don't need to know that it has Thunderclap. I know it's going to have Thunderclap. So I'm going to leave them all turned on because I do want to track all of that. So I think that's a great note there. Enemy player buffs and debuffs. I don't do PvP, so I can leave that at none. Friendly player buffs and debuffs. Again, I don't play with friendly nameplates on. I can leave that at none, but they have all the same options as enemy NPCs. Debuff padding will adjust the distance of the buff from the nameplate bar. So it starts at 0. You can do it all the way up to 50. Now we see these lifting up, and you see here, what I'll do is if I look at this again, you can see it moves those buffs way up into the air. So you can set that however you want it. I like it at 0. Because at 0, there's the ever slightest bit of overhang, and I think that is just chef's kiss for a look. And then simplify nameplates. This controls whether the nameplates of certain types of units are displayed in a more simple and streamlined way. And then it breaks it down, and I'm going to just leave this off for now. So that's all of the nameplate changes and how they look and what we can do for them. So I'm going to close this. So that's the two things that I think could take these nameplates from 90% to 100% is allowing us to filter what debuffs are tracked. And then lastly, if they let us change the color of the nameplates to when based on threat instead of just having the red light. Now let's just show you here in action how these look. I can't actually attack anything in here because everything gets one shot in follower dungeons. So you see they all just die right away, which isn't great. Let me taunt a mob, make sure the nameplate doesn't change. Yeah, so it stays red, but you can see taunt up there on his nameplate. It was tracking the taunt, and then he changed target, so we saw the red fire to say we changed target. So pretty good stuff. It is way closer to what I thought it would be. And in all honesty, I could play with it as is in this state and be okay. I just would like if we could just get to that 90%, just a little bit more. I would be super happy. And yeah, so great job, Blizzard, on the nameplates. Really looking forward to seeing more of the UI changes in Midnight.